Hello and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. I am your host, Andy Grant. We come to you live every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. This podcast is recorded live and then syndicated throughout the world, throughout the webs, throughout the magic of technology. You can also follow us on Twitter at realmenfeel.org. You can connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. Show notes, information about upcoming shows can be found at realmenfeel.org. And with all that talk about Real Men Feel, let's tell you that the core, the purpose of this movement, of this show, is to create a space for men to allow for and express all of their emotions. That's the genesis behind everything. So, again, I'm your host, Andy Grant. With me, as always, is my good friend and fellow coach, Appio Hunter.
Hey, Andy.
How are you doing today?
Fantastic. It's been an awesome day.
Awesome. Well, let's keep that rolling.
Absolutely, yes.
Cool. So we're very excited to have join us live from Stockholm, Sweden, Personal Change Facilitator, which I both think that's a cool title. Personal Change Facilitator Tanya Arler.
Hi, guys. I am so honored and happy to be on the show. This is just awesome. And I just think what you guys do is wonderful. And I wanted to say, I heard one of your previous shows, and I wanted to say, I'm Tanya Arler, and I enable men who feel.
I love that.
Good, because lots of guys come and ask, well, how do I get started with it? So now we can say, oh, you need Tanya. She will enable your feeling.
There we go.
Awesome. Cool. So we wanted to talk about today the notion of conventional success versus authentic fulfillment.
Yeah.
So what is your definition of authentic fulfillment?
Authentic fulfillment. I mean, the reason why I kind of feel very strongly about that conversion is I think that if we look at what's happening in the world, not just with men, but with all around the world, men and women, is that we've been living our lives very much so in this conventional definition of what success is, and we've been trying to find our happiness through the job, the house, the money, the lifestyle, whatever the things that you learn to define by your parents, by your people of influence, has been this conventional concept. And people are finding out more and more that that's not really what it's about. It's about feeling fulfilled. It's about being authentic. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And so really that's what I like to help people get to that place. And the reason why I call myself a change facilitator is I was looking back at kind of what my customers would say about me. And I'd see, well, I've facilitated this change in their life. And then I looked at, well, what is the change? What do they look like before? What do they look like after? And I came up with this, they've gone from this job. I have one lady who was a lawyer that turned into a radio host, so that they've just followed their bliss, followed their passion. And that's how they came to that. So that's kind of how I feel the universe is moving globally as a group, as a civilization. We're moving that way. So that's why.
So it's kind of the conventional success is like what I call the people. I've done everything I was supposed to do to be happy, yet I'm not. So it's
exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Exactly.
So what are some ways that people can discover their own authenticity if they think they don't know what it is? Right?
Well, I mean, I think, actually one of my things that I love saying is success is achieved by using what's at hand to get you closer to where you want to be. So if you're in this mold of conventional success and you know this isn't right for you, but you don't know what that picture should look like, then it's about taking a step. It's about using what's at hand to get you closer to the direction you want to be, and then seeing what happens. See how that feels. See how that goes. It might work out. It might not work out, right? But the fact that you've taken a step closer will at least get you on a path that's going to get you there. I think that's one of my things.
Cool. Yeah. So much more like action focused as opposed to wishing and hoping and wondering what's wrong. And
absolutely. And I think, taking action is a thing that I love talking about, because I think when people are sitting there in their unhappy lives, or maybe not even necessarily unhappy, but just not quite, there, something missing, they think to create some sort of change in their life that will be meaningful and real, they've got to have a master scheme. They've got to do grand sweeping gestures. And the thing is no, little steps can get you so far. It can open, even if I say, if we're going to apply this really into a conventional male world, the man would be in a job that was a full-time job and making the regular salary and the whole thing. Just taking that job and doing it slightly differently is already stepping into your authentic fulfillment, into your authentic self. People talk about spirituality and feeling and all these kind of things. That doesn't mean you have to wear it on your sleeve. It means you have to live it on the inside and start acting that way in accordance with what feels right for you.
Now, I really love that, Tanya, especially how you describe it, doing what feels right. That's something that's very much aligned with what Andy and I do as well. And probably that's why, when we've had previous conversations, there's always that connection of being able to basically follow your bliss, follow the fun, do what feels right. So when you were working with men and helping them take those baby steps in the right direction and something suddenly no longer feels right, do you tell them, no, you have to keep going, or do you tell them it's okay to change direction? It doesn't matter how many times you change direction as long as it feels right.
It definitely doesn't matter how many times you change direction, but I think the tip that I would give them, because I think what happens more often than not is that they'll feel, oh, this doesn't feel right, but they'll let the logical mind will kick in and say, oh, but it's the good thing and I've ticked the boxes, and we almost get into like our own conundrum in our head of, I feel like this is the right thing for me to do, but and you almost can't listen to that voice, right? It just gets hard to listen to that. So the question that I feel I tell people to pose to themselves is, am I in a place of this is bad and this is good, or am I in a place of this is right? If you're doing, and the difference is, right is something, there is no wrong. It's right or it's not right. And if you're in a woman's situation, I'm being a bad mom or I'm being a good mom, right? I'm being a bad employee, I'm being a good employee, I'm being a bad husband, I'm being a good husband, whatever that bad good is. If you're feeling bad about something, then you're not kind of even on that wavelength of feeling what is right. So I think that's a little tip that I could say. If you feel you're in a good bad dilemma, then you're looking in the wrong area.
Right. So if you're in your head and you're doing the paralysis by analysis thing, definitely you're not going into space. But if you're just going with what feels right, what feels okay, then be guided by that instead. Exactly.
Okay.
It's that tough discernment of, I think I'm feeling versus I'm feeling.
Exactly. And if you kind of want to put it into different terms, it's like your mind thinks and your intuition feels. And if you and we need a healthy balance of both in life, right? I mean, life is about balance. And if you can kind of get into that space of, well, my mind will only take me so far. If it doesn't feel right, it's not the right thing for me to do. And I think that's a really important balance to find. And more often than not, when we're having these conundrums in our head and we're having the self-talk and all that stuff is going on, what's really happening is that we feel what the right thing to do is, but we can't find the logic chain to back that up. So we rehash and we refold and we remuddle and we rethink. Well, what if I think about it this way? Can I then come to the conclusion that I feel is right? And you get stuck in that. And then the answer to that is really, no, you'll never find a logic pattern that's going to support this one. So you just got to take that leap, right? At one point, you're going to get so stuck in this cycle of trying to find a way to justify what you really want to do. And if you're doing that, it means your intuition is telling you one thing, you're feeling, and your mind just can't find the logic chain to back it up.
Is there a difference in your work with men and women as to being more open to intuition and feeling, or is it kind of equal across both sexes? Or
I would use different terminology with men than I would for women.
Okay.
I think that's probably the most, and even within women, there's still ranges, but I would feel much more comfortable saying, well, this is kind of your soul with a woman, whereas with a man, I'd say, well, this is your intuition. Because it's just a little bit more of a jump. And really, I think my job or any job as a coach is to to use vocabulary and express yourself in a way that they can hear. It's not about what I believe, it's about what they can hear. So yeah, I definitely think that would be my biggest thing. I think with the men that I've worked with, some of the funny things, I had one particular guy that I worked with years and years ago. He came to me because he wasn't getting interviews. And I thought it was already a real bold step that he came to kind of a personal change facilitator because he couldn't get a job. You know, he wanted to get the interview, and he wasn't asking about his resume. He just couldn't get the interview. He's like, I'm stuck. And he quite happily went down the path with me, and it came out that it was something like the relationship with his sister was holding him back. And we ended up in a whole different spot, as you do. But that was more unusual. That's a harder type of man to find, but they're there. They're there.
That's what I was going to ask. How common is that? So still today, fewer men than women go, something's wrong in my life. Oh, it's within me, as opposed to, no, it's something out there and it's their fault, etc.
Definitely. I definitely think that. And it's interesting, and I'm just going to bring this up. I mentioned this before in an email with you guys. Just 2 nights ago, I was having dinner with a group of ladies. It was a ladies' night out. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to be on the show called Real Men Feel. And they're like, my husband should watch that. And we're talking about it. And we then started this conversation about, well, and as you said, I'm just going to back up. You mentioned that I lived in Stockholm. So yes, I live in Stockholm. I live out of, my home country. And most everyone here does live out of their home country, or the people that we associate with, because like seeks like, right? You get along. I have Swedish friends, but I get along more with people that aren't Swedish because we understand the journey that we've been on. So then, particularly with the husbands who are less likely to socialize and reach out and share their feelings, we as women were like, well, how do we do that? They don't have the guys that they've been hanging out with their whole life that they can feel comfortable. They're put in a position where these men have to make new connections. And so they're like, can you ask how could we help them? So it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, the Real Men Feel has a private Facebook group. You can join that. That's virtual. That's virtually everywhere around the world, regardless.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So I do facilitate a monthly men's group of men in person.
Okay.
I find, saying they don't have the people they've known for all these years. Well, those are the people for all these years they weren't opening up to anyway, probably for most men. So, I find the willingness to go make a new friend, and they can, be open from the start, instead of having that history with them.
That's true.
But I could not change until I wanted to change. Mm-hmm. I didn't have someone go, you're not doing it right, or you need to feel more. Like that would have driven me in the opposite direction, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So, for any woman, encourage, praise, reward what you see your man doing. If he's doing something you appreciate, encourage the direction. But just
let it be. Yeah, no, of course. We've kind of concluded that we need to have a big party and just put all the men in one room, and we go in another room and just see what happens. That was our.
The one-way mirror, so that way you can all sit and observe them, almost like the scientists.
Because I thought at the men's group I facilitate, guys will all show up and say, I can't talk about this, I can't share this. They share it. 90% of the other men will go, oh my God, I feel that same way, or I've had that experience. So it's that willingness. Someone has to be willing to break the ice and open up. Yeah. And when they go to a men's group, they feel like, oh, here's the place I'm supposed to do that. Yeah. So if you just put guys that already know each other in a room, they're probably going to act like guys that already know each other in the room, and talk about
not really make much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I found that in my own life and in my own coaching practice as well, is that oftentimes it's easier for people to, in a very strange way, open up with total strangers.
Yeah.
Because then they can be really authentic with each other. Yeah. Versus somebody who knows your history and is unwilling to forgive that history.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And then you have the other side of the coin. So, a little bit of my background is I'm binational. I'm half Belgian, half American, but I've spent most of my adult life traveling around. So I lived in Belgium in my 20s, and then I met my husband, and we moved to Italy and back to Belgium, and then to Singapore, and then to Tokyo, and back to Belgium, and now we're in Sweden. So we've done a lot of moves. And it was actually after talking to Appio a couple of years ago that I realized we were talking about men and changes and transitions. And I realized in my own life, wow, I get that in a weird way, only because I walked into these new cultures and completely new worlds where I didn't know, were stripped of everything, stripped of my identity, stripped of my comfort, stripped of my comfort zone. And you get there and you go, well, what do I do now? Right? You know, I mean, how do I rebuild my life? How do I become me? Who am I? Right? I don't even, suddenly when you take these things away from you, you wonder who you are. And you realize that your identity was very involved in the physical place that you were, what you did, you know, the things around you, but things that weren't really within. And it made me think, you know, about coming on this show. I thought, well, I think if there are men out there that are, you know, stepping into that authenticity, they're definitely going to be feeling and experience the same feelings of losing that comfort zone of convention. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and the biggest struggle that I had, was finding my identity each time. Because with every single move that I did, I had to start over. And I think if the men out there that are wanting to make these, you know, authentic changes into a new life, some of them might be within their same life, just living it differently, which is awesome. And some of them might say, well, listen, this is not for me. I want to quit my job and go fishing. I don't know. It's just saying part of what's going to be challenging there is realizing how much of your identity is wrapped up in stuff that other people have impressed upon you. And when that is stripped away, that's when you really get an opportunity to look at what version of me do I really want to be. And my biggest lesson was I realized there are hundreds of versions of me, and all of them can be authentic, and all of them can be true, and all of them can be happy, and that it really is a choice.
You know, it's interesting you should bring that up, because I've always believed in that full, complete, holistic approach, that quantum approach that Diane Collins talked about in a few programs ago. And, you know, I love how the fact that you talk about those all, you know, yes, there might be hundreds of you, but they're all part of Tanya. They're all part of the full, complete you, which in and of itself is not a bad thing. You know, as you were talking about how society impresses certain things upon us, and you know, we're conditioned to think certain ways and to judge ourselves so harshly. That's where the work that you do, I think, is so amazing. It's being able to guide and peel back those conversations, the judgments, let them fall by the wayside, or even start brand new. Okay, here's this authentic me that I want to create right now. What's the next authentic me that I want to create right now? Go with the best feeling thing. Yes, you know, we can always use science. We can always use neuropsychology and so forth.
Exactly.
But that's part of it. It's not the holistic approach. It's not the complete picture.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in this vein of what I've learned from building my new identity, I want to give all those men out there my biggest top tip when you're in that transition or place of uncertainty is literally have your sentence ready. And what I mean by that, people always laugh, but I do a talk for expats, so that are brand new in this thing. And the worst thing is when you're transitioning into a new life, or when you're trying to change, or when you're trying to become someone a little bit more you, and people say to you, oh, so what do you do? And you go, I kind of, I'm coaching, or I'm consulting, and you, because you're in this transition, you don't really have a clear answer, because you don't really know what you really want yourself, and you haven't worked it all out. And it sucks the confidence out of you. It just goes, and you're gone, because it seems like such a simple question that you should be able to answer. So I say to people, listen, come up with any answer that you feel good about. I said, if you want to say, oh, I watch TV, that's fine, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be, oh, I go to lunch a lot, and then people come up with, I'm a creative this and I do that. it doesn't matter what that answer is, as long as you have an answer to those questions that suck your confidence, that you can say with confidence. And what the great thing is not only if you have an answer ready, your confidence has not been sucked out of you, but it then puts it back on the other person. They go, okay. Yeah, all right, moving on. And then the conversation's done. There's no energy put into it. There's no uncomfortableness. They'll be like, okay. So
almost stump them with your authenticity, just have it blow them away. Like, whoa, you're just...
Exactly.
And one thing I want to touch on, because we're talking about authenticity a lot, and we're talking about following your bliss and your happiness, and that's what tells you it. But when I was stepping into my authentic self to begin with, it was scary. And it was painful, and it wasn't fun and blissful. Eventually it was. And every time I revealed more of myself and allowed myself to be authentic and vulnerable, I was always rewarded. But in that moment, it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. Oh my God. Definitely. And that fear is unfortunately a part of it. The two things that you can do with that, one, and I just love this, and there's been several like neurological or studies done, but fear and excitement are the same emotion. They're the same chemical reaction in your body, right? And it's hard to remember in that moment of fear, but if you can just find that little smidgen of like logical thought that's still in there when you're in those moments of panic and say, this is probably exciting too. It means that it's exciting too. And this is joy. So fear and excitement are the same emotion. I myself in my own life regularly kind of go back to them and say, well, okay, that means I can look at it differently. And fear just means that you are letting go of your comfort zone. Fear is something that the ego will set into your world, because your ego or your mind or your logical pattern, call it what you want. It's not, I don't mean ego in that Freudian kind of, but your ego doesn't like change. And it is going to do anything possible to stop you from changing. And your ego also dominates that logic pattern, right? So if it can find the power to stop you, it will, right? So it's just stepping back and saying, okay, but what am I really fearful of? I'm fearful of the unknown. But that doesn't mean that's a bad thing.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Because, and again, if you're in search of your own authenticity, your purpose, your mission, that's unknown. Yeah. So if you fear the unknown, you're not going to get those answers.
Exactly. And it's funny, I actually just yesterday spoke to a friend of mine who I've known for a while, and I said it's serendipitous that she called on. She'd been working for a year trying to leave her job. She wasn't happy in her job. She wanted to be an independent. She wanted to let go. She wanted to be a consultant. And she just, fear stood in her way. And she called me about 2 months ago and said, Tanya, I'm quitting my job tomorrow. And she had to work until the end of September, right? And she called me yesterday. She said, Tanya, I still have 2 weeks to work. I already have 2 customers. I'm already going to make more money than I would have been making staying in my old job. And I got this going on. And she said, you have to use me as a case study, Tanya, because this is perfect. I can't believe this is happening to me. And it's awesome, but that's the way it works. If you make space for opportunities, they will come. And it's just staying in tune with that feeling, with that intuition, and not letting that, mind logic-based part of you take the upper hand where it doesn't belong.
And another thing to point out regarding the brain and how it works and how it can sometimes trick us is that the brain evolved in a way to keep us alive. So the fear that, that fight or flight instinct that we frequently fear, which is totally associated, that we feel that is associated with fear, is the biological part of us trying to keep the biological part of us from dying.
Yep.
And yet, when faced with new challenges, when faced with new emotional awareness, it triggers that same part of the brain. And so, of course, the logical part, the part that's tasked with keeping us alive, sees it as a threat, and so therefore wants to keep us in that safe little cocoon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at the same time, it shuts down your executive functions, or at least diminishes their capacity, because the blood flow to that part of your brain is no longer there. So yeah, you're not thinking straight. I suppose we could say, if you're fearful, you're just not thinking straight. Bottom line, right?
But funny you should mention the blood flow aspect of it, and fear and excitement being the same thing, because we know when men are excited and the blood flows out, we stop thinking as well. So
exactly.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So it's all linked in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just think it's really cool. Fear is a really tricky one, because unfortunately you just have to say to people that courage is what it's there for. But also, I mean, I personally have been through, fear is something that our mind can conquer. And I personally was in a situation where my husband travels a lot, and at one point he was gone, and a long story, but there was loud music next door, and I lived kind of remotely at the time, and my kids were 1 and 2, very young, and it was a party of a lot of young guys, and it got a little, suddenly fear gripped me. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm all alone, and what if they come, and what if they come, and what if they attack me and my kids? And my mind was whizzing. I mean, it was completely in panic. And I thought, okay, Tanya, this is no good. You cannot let this happen. And I said, all right, Tanya, what can you do? What can I do? And I repeated to myself, I will not succumb to fear. I will not succumb to fear. And I remember laying in my bed, I will not succumb to fear. I will not. And I wouldn't let my mind wander, and I wouldn't let it go anywhere else. I just focused, I will not succumb to fear. And I fell asleep 5 minutes later. I was so proud of myself, but it made me realize that, that fear is something that we can choose to allow to dominate our life, or we can say, no, fear is not going to be what dominates what I do. It's not that it will never be there, but we can push through it. And fear almost never represents the reality of what we think it is.
Right. Yeah, I always tell people, action cures fear. Right? Your action to take an action in that situation, your action to consciously choose to focus on something else, they're all actions.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, a thought is an action. I love that. Oh my gosh, yeah. Action cures fear. Absolutely. Absolutely. And not just that, action not just cures fear, it brings other possibilities to you. It brings possibilities that you have. It shows you have options.
Right. Yeah. Fear shrinks down that what you can see. The blinders are on, and you just see one option, and it's that terrifying option.
Exactly.
Speaking of options, along the lines of what you were talking about, about repeating a mantra, there's a mutual friend of ours, Haviland Russell, who has shared with all of us one of her mantras that she uses to create options, which is losing my peace of mind is not an option.
Exactly.
Since that isn't an option, what other options are then created?
Yep. Absolutely. If you can understand, if you can take an option away and say, well, this one is not even a realistic option. I cannot do this. Mm-hmm. What is left? No, absolutely. Yeah. And I love Haviland. She's wonderful. But yeah, and I think that's an awesome thing. Just realizing that our mind is so much more powerful than we can possibly imagine.
Yes, absolutely.
My father used to say to me, my father was a heathen, a self-declared heathen, but he would say to me, he was very dedicated to, he was a very moral man. And I'd say to him, Dad, do you believe that there's a God? And he'd say, yes, I do, Tanya. He said, but for me to pretend that I can comprehend him in its totality is hypocritical, because this thing that is our creator, that made us, brought us here, has to be so all-encompassing that we are just but small parts of it. So part of us just has to let go and have the faith, the blind faith, and take the leap and live the life the way we choose.
What beautiful advice.
Yeah. And that's a heathen? I don't know what a heathen is then.
Right. Well, exactly.
I think I'd like to be a heathen.
I actually looked up heathen, and it says that they believe in something, but it doesn't conform to anything else or something like that.
I really like that. And we have a comment here from Sarah. She was talking about, as supporters of changing old ways of being, we're so very clear on the knowing that humans are here to create and conquer our primal fears. to become and make this world a much better place, utilizing the energy of it. Because that kind of goes along the lines of being authentic, being that heathen. Just live the most authentic, beautiful life that you can.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm trying to recall the poem that my father wrote, and I used to know it by heart, and this would be the perfect place to share it. Okay, can I try? I think I have it.
Yeah, go for it.
We won't know.
This will be the first time that it's ever been public. It's a very private thing. My father wrote this when he was 25, and he lived his life by it. So this is perfect for Real Men Feel. I think
World premiere.
From out of the sky came the roar of a high-flying bat. From out of the jungle, the roar of a low-crawling cat. A sudden scream, a soft, sad, dying moan. These are the sounds of the great unknown. So stay in your caves, you, and then I missed a part. There's a part there, but I don't remember. Then it says, but so stay, I can't remember. Can I go grab it?
Yes.
I think this is actually really, really good.
Yes, by all means, feel free to do that. We'll sustain the conversation meantime.
Cool, poetry hour. Awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I don't think we've ever done that before. So This is, hey, we're having a few firsts now. World premiere of a poem that's been a deeply personal share. Yeah. Hey, Sarah.
And we have no theme song, so maybe this poem can be, some stanza can be set to music and be the Real Men theme song, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I like what I heard so far already.
Okay, so I'm going to put my glasses on to make sure I get it all right. Okay.
Fantastic.
From out of the sky comes the squeak of a high-flying bat. From out of the jungle, the roar of a great hunting cat. A sudden scream, a soft, sad, dying moan. From out of the night comes these sounds of the great unknown. So stay in your caves, you meek of heart. The stakes of this game are too high. The winners walk tall, kings of the earth. The losers die. It gets better. The losers die. But everyone who lives must someday die. You can't pick the time or the place. So come out of your caves, you meek of heart, and meet life face to face. For isn't it better to play and lose while making your own best try than to never know what life really was when it comes time to die? Stay in your caves, you meek of heart, warm, safe, and secure. That's not a way to live, just a way to endure. Everyone needs a warm, safe cave, a haven when things get too rough. But the only measure of man's self-worth is what to him is enough. That's my dad.
I think your dad just became the patron saint of the Real Men Feel movement.
There we go. Yeah, and that's how I was raised as well. That was very much as, it's what to you is enough. And he would say to me often, and I think this is going back to fear, how I was able to overcome it. He said, I don't need to know what your beliefs and morals and standards are. I just need you to look at me and say, you have them and you live by them. And I think when you have that inside of you of what you want and what you value, and you're clear on that, then that fear is not as scary.
Yeah, that sounds like authenticity and integrity. And if you're authentic and have integrity, you can respect other people doing that, even if it doesn't match your values.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And that's really what it's about, right? And I think that's so important about authenticity, is that what's right for you is not right for me. Mm-hmm. So there's no longer, and going back, there's no longer that good, bad, right?
Right.
If that's right for you, this is right for me, and that's okay.
I call that the personal truth with a small t. And then there are those universal truths with a big T, which don't need explanation. We just know it. We hear it and we know it instinctively. We're able to accept it intuitively, no issues whatsoever. But that small truth, that personal truth, is absolutely something that what's right for you isn't necessarily right for me. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah. I love it. Absolutely love it.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Yes. It feels good. I haven't really shared that publicly because it was a very private thing of his, but I think just felt this was the right place. It's really cool.
And did he write lots of poetry? Was that a standout singular occurrence? Or?
He wrote this one, and then he wrote two more, and it was, and they're all on the same theme. No, that was just, and they're all on the same theme. This one he wrote in 1956, so he was like 20 something. And then he wrote two later in life. But the third one that he wrote, he sent to me, and I don't have it on hand, or I'd even get that up maybe for the next show. And I realized that it was what he wanted me to read at his eulogy. And it was a very powerful moment because it was this poem, but then looking back saying, and it says, I remember the crux of it was, if, the day will come that I die, and that'll mean that I'll have met my monster. But don't mourn me, my friends, because I've been alive, because I've lived it the way I want to. So, yeah, he definitely would have fallen into the real men feel category as, from Arkansas, down home boy, but just was in tune with himself and lived his life the way he truly believed was right.
Awesome.
He's authentic to the core. In fact, Frank was saying here that not only did he appreciate the poem, that just it remembers that your dad is a wonderful man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think so. Frank. Oh, and that's Frank Charton. Okay, I just have to share really briefly. So my dad was a good old boy from Tulsa, Oklahoma in the end, and his cars were his living, his life, and he had a Trans Am. And my brother, who lives in LA and is gay, didn't really want the Trans Am, and they had no place to go. But my husband was like, I want the Trans Am. And he's like, he was almost afraid to ask. So anyways, long story short, we bring the Trans Am over to Belgium because we were living in Belgium. So we export the Trans Am from over to Belgium, which was crazy, but okay. And we drove it for 2-3 years. And my dad loved that car. That was like his heart and soul. And me and my husband were just not giving it the love we need. So we said, okay, we need to sell it, which broke my heart because I was, selling my father's soul almost. And we put an ad out, and this amazing guy comes along, and it's Frank. And he lives in Strasbourg, which is 6 hours away. And he comes to visit the car and falls instantly in love and turns up with a Matchbox Trans Am that looks just like my father's. Same color, same stuff. I then drive the car to Strasbourg because of license plate stuff. And we get there, and he gives me a bottle of wine because his father also collected wine, and from the year I was born. We found out that our fathers passed away at the same time, and that he got a lump sum of money to buy a car, to buy the car of his dreams, and it was my father's car. I mean, it was
wow.
Just madness. And now he's taking care of the car as well as my father would have, and we are so grateful that we are able to pass that. I mean, my dad is thrilled. I can tell that we were able to pass it. So yeah, isn't that funny?
And Frank is sharing a picture of the car with us here. I'll see if I can pull it. Et Franck, bienvenue. Vous êtes toujours bienvenue ici.
Yeah. Oh, and he's lovely. Yeah. So we had this meeting of the minds. It's funny how souls can meet souls and authentic can meet authentic, because that was truly one of these crazy moments that you think can never happen, and it did. So yeah.
Okay. Perfect synchronicities all around. I love it.
Absolutely. I'm going to see if I can share the picture here real quick, just so everybody can see it. I'm going to do a quick little screen share, and there. Can you all see it?
Oh, yep.
There we go.
There is that beautiful Trans Am.
Awesome. And I'll add this for anyone listening to the podcast. We'll add this picture on the show notes at realmenfeel.org as well. So
oh my God!
The
Awesome.
full experience.
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool. That was really good, and I love how this has really transitioned almost to like an homage to your father. And, the Real Men Feel creators truly for living it at a time when probably it was more difficult than it is today.
Definitely. I know that people did not, some people didn't understand him, but he always was, well, no, that's not true. He was always respected. So yeah, he was a good man.
Cool. Beautiful.
And thank you for letting me share that.
And you are a wonderful woman. Let's praise everyone as well, right? That's just
absolutely. I mean, very much a reflection of who your father is, and a continuation of that beautiful energy.
So Tanya, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you or to learn about the work you're doing?
So my main page is my Facebook page, Tanya Arler's page. And that's where I kind of post all kind of the stuff that's going on and some inspirational quotes and that kind of thing. I also have a website called TanyaArler.com. Very simple. You can find all the different ways that you can work with me. I do a lot of different, interesting, cool, neat things. And you say real men feel, I say real change right now. So that's my tagline about, and I think Appio's had a little bit of my magic, just about really stepping into that change, whatever that may be, in a real tangible way, because that's what I'm about.
Indeed.
Awesome. Well, we've been going for about 40 minutes, so I think we should wrap this week up. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you everyone that's joined us live, your questions and comments, and the sharing of the Trans Am.
Yay! Thank you, Frank.
So we'll be live again next Tuesday, September 27th at 5 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Real Men Feel. And next week, every week is interesting. Next week will be interesting as well. We're being joined by Joseph Culp, the director of the independent film called Welcome to the Men's Group, a little comedy drama about men's groups. So maybe he'll have insight on what to tell these men of Sweden and where they can go.
Love it. Absolutely.
And again, realmenfeel.org/show will get you to the live taping every Tuesday. Until then, check out realmenfeel.org. Join our group on Facebook. It's private. You can share and be authentic and no repercussions, right? So thanks again, Tanya. Thank you, Appio.
Of course.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Sarah. Thank everybody that's joined us live. And wow, I love it. I love the authenticity.
Yay!
Yes.
Beautiful. All right.
Thanks
again,
so much, guys. Take care.